Hello and happy 2024. My name is Christian Contreras. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And welcome to our first installment of Feminist Frequencies featuring myself and the Dr. Heidi R. Lewis, PhD, or as I lovingly call her, Madam President of NWSA. This is our first fireside chat, except this time without the fire.
We the fire.
Spiritually and emotionally, intellectually. The fire is here. We just couldn't figure out this very beautiful relic that would have kept us warm.
Yes.
But the purpose of Feminist Frequencies is to make sure that our membership and our association as a whole gets to know not only the folks behind the scenes, people emailing you incessantly about the annual conference and your membership dues, but also to help think about the vision and mission of how NWSA can meet the needs of what it means to be a women, gender, and sexuality scholar, activist, educator, organizer, disruptor, today.
Yes.
But enough about the fun introduction. Let's get down to business with my
Let's do it.
iPad.
Let's do it.
Fancy iPad. Now, Madam President / Heidi.
Please. Just Heidi.
It's hard to believe that we only met in person 3-ish months ago, but congratulations again.
Thank you
on being elected our newest president.
Whew.
It's been, if my math is correct, because math is not my ministry, if I'm correct, we're 2.5 months into your 2-year term.
Yes.
So what have you been up to?
Oh my goodness. So immediately following the conference in Baltimore, where we met for the first time, it feels like 6 months ago. It was not that long. Immediately after we got back, I started having one-on-one meetings with every single member of the board. Except in the office, except in the case of the Women of Color Caucus co-chairs I met with together, because it was really, really, really important for me to reconnect with the board as incoming president and to get a better understanding of their experiences with NWSA and on the board from this perspective. Because I've known some members of the board for years. Vice President Stephanie Troutman Robbins and I realized that we joined NWSA at the same time through the Women of Color Leadership Project in 2008. We didn't remember that. We just started lining it up like, wait, I was 08, you was 08. So we don't remember each other from that, but we've known each other for that long, but still it's different. You know, me being on the board as secretary was a totally different experience than I'm certain it'll be with me as president. So I just wanted to sort of ground myself in the experiences of the board now. So I did all of that, met with each and every one of them for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half.
I feel like we met for
5 hours.
17 hours, but
every week.
But it was
but
a beautiful experience, I think.
No, it was, because you know, I learned history I didn't know. I was able to learn about how various board members see NWSA from a fresher perspective than those of us who've been around for as long as I have. And that was really helpful for me. And one of the reasons I did that was because I wanted to develop a strategic plan for my particular term, my 2-year term. But I didn't want to do that on my own. Although, of course, I come into the presidency with experiences and knowledges and ideas and all of that. I didn't want to sort of tell the board and tell the membership, this is what I think, me alone, and you all will get on board or get off. I at least wanted to have an opportunity to define that collectively with the board. So that was, in addition to just sort of reacquainting myself with people that I served on the board with in a different capacity, meeting people that I did not really know or had heard of but didn't have a relationship with. In addition to all of that, I wanted to learn from them in order to develop the plan. So really, I asked everybody, including you, to come into the meeting with answers to, I think, 3 questions. What is your vision for the role that you play? Mm-hmm. Whether it's member at large, treasurer, and then what's your vision or what ideas do you have for NWSA as a whole? And then what ideas do you have for me as president, right? So that was sort of what I asked them to think about, in addition to sort of rereading the bylaws and understanding what that document has been and meant. And I actually had a lot of fun. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention too was that prior to those meetings, I sent everybody my CV and asked them to send me mine. Obviously, that wasn't meant to be evaluative, right? Evaluate and then what? Kick them off the board? No. It was more so, it gave me an opportunity to see people as professionals, as intellectuals, and to learn, our bios on the website are like that big, right? Depending on who we are. So that doesn't really tell me anything about the board, but seeing everybody's CVs and just being able to see what they've done, where they've been, what they're interested in was like, it was overwhelming, but it was so enlightening, because what I wanted that to do was to give me an opportunity to think about the kinds of things that they could do as board members that would be purposeful and that would amplify their knowledges and talents and things of that nature. Because if nothing else, I want me, you, the board, and everybody to feel as purposeful as possible and to feel and to be as seen and heard as possible. So that's really what I've been doing. Put the strategic plan out to the board. We had discussions about it. It's about to come out to the public soon. I'm so nervous, but excited at the same time. And then the CFP. So that's literally what these last 2.5 or so months have entailed, is those things.
I think what's really beautiful about the process is that post-conference back in Baltimore, the governing council would meet. I was there for short periods of time. I was dry heaving all around both of our sites. But the board met and talked about, again, like what you're naming, like where are we going when it comes to anchoring the field, right? That's what NWSA is. We are the biggest and largest, those are synonyms.
The biggest and largest and most gigantic.
Most gigantic. But we're the biggest and the oldest association that focuses on women and gender and sexuality studies.
Right.
And as you've written, either one works. You named, how about that? Yes. As you named in the CFP, which I'm very excited to go out. Me too. By the way, so I can no longer get those emails.
Please, it's coming.
But back to my point. I do think what's so beautiful is that these conversations have happened with every iteration of the board. And I know firsthand how galvanized the board feels, how I feel supported as the interim director in anchoring the association administratively. Really good at the spreadsheets. But thinking about how we also see that include our constituency groups, include folks all across the membership. It's not just the seasoned folks, it's who are wonderful and amazing. Shout out to you. But what excites me too is how the strategic plan involves the entirety of what it means to be connected in solidarity, right? Like this is the 25th anniversary of All About Love, a new vision for Bell Hooks, and not for her, but written by the OG Bell Hooks. And I think about how love is integrated from the very first paragraph all the way through how we're going to be convening together in Detroit in November. You should register for that conference.
I'm looking forward to that conference a lot. But to your point, the strategic plan is entitled Reconnect, Repair, and Restore.
We love an alliteration moment.
I'm such a fan. And then colon, a more thoughtful, transparent, and trustworthy NWSA. All of those things together are primarily how I understand love. I don't know what love is without connection, trust, transparency, accountability, all those kinds of things. And I know that the association has had to contend with a lot of tension and conflict over the past couple years. I was on the board prior to serving as president, as secretary. So I was there. I was up close. And one of the things that touched me is that I was looking back through all of the programs. And I started with 93 and 94. to see how things may have shifted when Vivian Eng became our very first president, preceding steering committees and co-chairs and things like that. And in her message to the membership in the program, the very first program that she led as president, one of the first things she wrote was essentially, we've been through a lot, and you could tell it was drama. And those of us who have, become privy to the various NWSA stories know what was happening at that time. Women of color were fed up and walking away. Vivian becomes president and says, right out, we've been through a lot, and I'm looking forward to leading us through a sort of not a historical, but different iteration of NWSA. And when I read that, I was like, oh, whoa. Like, me too.
You said if you only could see this inbox,
Me
Vivian,
too.
and then insert every other president.
And this won't be the last time. So I appreciate you saying what you said about the plan, because that was the spirit in which I had all those meetings with all of y'all in order to write it, was to ground us, to clarify things about us and my thinking and our shared vision and shared mission, and to move and to do so in collaboration to the extent possible, right, with the membership, especially our myriad constituency groups. We have the committees, we have the task forces, we have the caucuses, we have the interest groups, and all the different people in the association who lead those. We want to be working with those members to do the work that we all came here to do. We really want, this particular board wants to return NWSA to its roots as a membership-driven association. But that doesn't mean that I won't act as president. I know what that means. Like, I'm excited about what that means. And you and I, of course, will talk about some of the ways that I'm working to sort of recenter that role in a particular way and, add some new flavor to it, recover some things about it that I've learned, borrow some ideas from past presidents we've had, but make it my own. But love is all through it the way I understand it. Yeah.
I just am like a little bit verklempt. I'm like, I really agree.
Serious. No, but it's really exciting because I really can't even sort of like believe I'm sitting here. Like, I don't think, I mean, it's not to say I never thought, like, there have been various times throughout my career where I've thought this was something I wanted, but I never really spent time to see that and think about, like, it's not like I set myself up to get here. Like, oh, I want that, so I'm going to do this. So to be here is like, woo, okay, I'm here now. So I want to do it in a way that makes sense. And that's what makes sense to me. So I'm glad to hear that that's how you're understanding it.
Yeah, and I think what at least how I'm receiving it, like naming the fact that you have a vision and it's anchored in the collective. It's not just, this is what my interests are as a leader, this is my own definition. And I think, again, it invokes all that Belle wrote in All About Love and so many other iterations of her work, which is, how are we defining clarity around what love is? And how are we also experiencing, manifesting it, facilitating other synonyms for create, curate?
Yes.
How are we doing love in community? Because we need each other, right? And I think for me, because I've read the strategic plan, I mean, I had to know it, had to live it,
Thank you.
Breathe it, put it in my nighttime skincare routine, tell everybody ad nauseum who's not an NWSA. But the point back to you is, in terms of finally hitting send on that email, right, to the board, what are you most excited about in terms of those elements of the strategic plan? Like, what gives you the most enthusiasm and, like, I need to get to November.
Yes.
And see these changes implemented and give life to them.
Yes. One of the things that I'm most excited about one of the things I'm most excited about, the membership engagement initiatives. I'm really excited about that because I appreciate the conference. I've become who I am today because of that conference. I've gone almost every year since I joined in '08. And I mean, I started in '08, which is the last year it was in the summertime. So like that far back. Not as far as others, but far back for my generation. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I know that people, including me, are desiring more routine opportunities to engage, to be with each other, to talk to each other, to learn from each other, to strategize with each other. And that makes a lot of sense given the times we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
We're under attack for real. You know, we're not imagining this. You know, you and I just met with a colleague in Florida who shared with us that institutions down there are either threatening to or are no longer reimbursing expenses for them to be in spaces like NWSA.
Mm-hmm.
When I was secretary, I organized the most recent NWSA chairs and directors meeting that featured that colleague and others in Florida who were sharing their experiences with us, strategizing with us. People want and need that more than just November.
Mm-hmm.
And so the membership engagement initiatives that I developed in collaboration with the board, because this kept coming up in the conversations with the board. I wish I'd counted how many members of the board said that they wanted to do more engagement with the membership year round.
Come through assessment.
You know what I mean?
I'm trying to lay a precedent.
I could go back to the notes. I still have the notes. I bet it was every single one. If it wasn't every single one, it was everybody but maybe 2 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say it was every single member of the board, and you as the representative of the office said the same thing.
I sure did, just for the record.
So we're all excited about that. So that's what makes me excited about that, in addition to knowing that it would be so beneficial to the members to have spaces, co-create spaces. And so the GC will be working with the office to do different kinds of membership engagement. So we will have short-term engagement initiatives such as webinars, workshops, teach-ins that happen, once a month, once every other month, just, whenever it makes sense for the members of the board to do so in collaboration with the office, other members, constituency groups, and so on. And then, in line with our alliterating, mm-hmm. I came up with these new NWSA communities, right? And there's 3, mm-hmm. Okay?
I'm ready.
Ready? There are critical communities where you would do things like discuss books, films, movies, TV shows. There are creative communities where you would have, scholarly writing groups, creative writing circles, things of that nature. And then there are care communities where facilitators are going to be mindful or be attentive to wellness and mindfulness in myriad ways. Meditations, libations mm-hmm. to the ancestors, whatever facilitators decide they want to do. Facilitators will, of course, primarily be the GC because we have been elected mm-hmm. to serve the association in a particular way. But we all are looking forward to doing so in collaboration with the office and members, especially our constituency groups. We have so many. I invite you, if you haven't in a while or if you never have, to just go look at the website, click governance, and you'll see, look, I'm seeing it. Click governance.
The website memorized at this point.
I have the website memorized only for it to be about to change, right? But I'm excited about that too. But I'm really excited about that kind of membership engagement mm-hmm. because most of it will be free. Sometimes we will ask for donations. Other times we will have sliding scale fees that go back into the association.
Mhm.
We have members who are in very precarious situations, like what I just referenced. We want to be able to support and help them.
Mhm.
We have graduate students. We
Mhm.
want to be able to support and help. And let me say this, because I joined in 2008. At that time, my son was born in 2004. He was 3. He wasn't yet 4. My daughter was born in 2006. She had turned 2. My husband was and remains self-employed. At the time I joined NWSA, we were on food stamps and getting daycare vouchers. We couldn't get housing vouchers. Oh, and we was on Medicaid too. And I was still taking our hard-earned money, the little we had, to pay membership and conference registration and to get to Cincinnati. Thankfully, I was at Purdue University. So my homegirl, we just drove. And I was able to stay with a friend. Shout out to Alia Rahman. I was able to stay with her and her partner at the time. I can't even remember where my other homegirl stayed. I think she stayed there too. But you see what I'm saying? So we want to be able to support members who are doing what I was doing in 2008. And I did get support from my department. Shout out to American Studies at Purdue, the African American Studies and Research Center at Purdue, and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at Purdue. But it didn't cover everything. And I was going to ASA at the time too, and NCBS. I was going to National Council for Black Studies.
You were on the
I was
circuit.
Interdisciplinary for real.
Well, was and is.
I miss you, ASA and NCBS, but I can't be everywhere at all the times now, y'all. Please.
And we're always like right up against each other.
I think I have to stop this.
And it's like I can't do 2 weeks off.
That's what I'm saying.
Like what we do, but back.
But yeah,
to the content.
So those fees will go to those kinds of supports because I want people to think we're just asking for donations or charging fees for these, communities and engagement. And this is just to line our pockets. No, we want to be able to support, but we need support to support.
I think in the short time that I've been the interim director, I think this past Sunday was 6 months. My hairline's receded a little bit, but that's what castor oil is for. But back to the conversation, I do think about my experience coming into NWSA. I was an administrator, and a mentor of mine was like, you have to come to NWSA. And I roll up not knowing what to expect. It was my first academic conference. As a practitioner prior, I had gone to my professional associations, and I was overwhelmed in the most beautiful way about the different types of connections I was able to meet other graduate students, or at the time I wasn't even in graduate school. And again, now fast forwarding up to now in my short time, I've had wonderful, hard, challenging, but also grounding conversations with folks, our members who are reaching out to the office and asking, like, how do I get funding to come? This is my only space. You've named so importantly that the field is under attack. Always has been. But as the world evolves, as we are seeing the weaponization of social justice language, the attacks on CRT, all the other elements that we can talk about ad nauseum, right, are impacting us in such ways that folks in Florida, Ohio, Texas, where I live, currently, you can't get funding if something says DEI, gender studies, right? And so the ways in which we're attacked are evolving, so we need each other now more than ever. And not just financially, it's naming, how are we connecting folks in Florida to the rest of the membership? Ohio, Texas, every other place that has legislation that's either in existence or in the, what's that word, lobby? On the docket, to become legitimized. And those 3 communities, beautiful alliteration, by the way.
Critical, creative, and care.
Speak to the expansiveness.
Really, because I, in conversation with you and the board, decided that was going to be one of the primary ways that we committed to a different kind of accessibility. Everybody can't make it to that conference.
Correct.
Everybody's not going to go broke to get there. So you're not going to have to wait until November to see me or to talk to me. One of the other things I'm excited about are my president's blogs that I'll be publishing routinely followed by a talk back on IG Live or some other space and some other space. Stay tuned. The Office. But shout out to Courtney though. Shout out to Courtney.
Our
The
operations
Office
manager who really held it down, continues to hold it down.
For real.
Courtney, you're much appreciated.
You are. And I can just say now that, you know, all of the announcements that you'll be receiving, invitations that you'll be receiving come from two people, Courtney and Christian. And that's really important for us to remember. We have a 2-person office staff. There have been times when there have been, 3, 4? We don't have that now. So we're trying to restabilize and rebuild. And I think that starts in large part with this kind of engagement that I'm talking about. Yeah. So the president's blogs will be lit. You know, I'm looking forward to, you know, seeing faces and hearing voices. You know, at the conference, I keep saying there will be no VIP rooms. #lobby lit. I'll be in the lobby. Yeah, I'll be in the lobby in a particular way, though. So, you know, if what they say, if you scared, go to church. If you scared, go to bed, because we gonna be down there playing spades and dominoes and listening to music. And I just want to be in fellowship with people more often than once a year, and I think a lot of people want that. So the blogs will help with that, the membership engagement. So those are some of the things that I'm most excited about coming out of the strategic plan. Just like I said, the first word in the strategic plan is reconnect, repair, restore, right? Reconnect. That's really important to me.
No, I appreciate that. And again, it feels like it's been 17 years, but it's only been 2.5 months. We're about to close out January, which feels so wild to even consider. But again, I think we've been moving at a very particular pace. One, where the national office, again, Courtney and myself, are working to stabilize. We've had a lot of change and transition over the last 5.5 years or so. And so me coming into the role, I've inherited a great privilege to be able to be a part of an association in this specific way that I love, that I would say held me in my academic journey, my professional journey, my regular person journey, whatever holistic type of approach I'm trying to get at here. But we've been moving at a particular pace, which I think leads us beautifully, because I set it up that way, beautifully into talking about the upcoming call for proposals. Ooh. Now, in theory, when we post this video, our first episode, right? The CFP will be out, and I think the folks want to know, and I know this because y'all have been emailing me, understandably and reasonably, as you should, because you're committed members. Yep. And you're trying to amplify the work. But talk to me a little bit, or a lot of bit, about the call for proposals for our 2024 conference. We are very privileged to partner with the city of Detroit, which has such rich cultural history, activist history, and I'm excited to be in 2 sites. They're connected or nearby, whatever word I'm thinking of here, but we are situated along the Underground Railroad. So that was my personal, what in the world excitement when I did a site visit back in November. But I'm talking about me. I want to talk about you, Madam President.
My goodness.
And your vision for the 2024 conference.
Yes. So, as you can see,
with the power
I have to go get my tablet
of editing, Madam President recovered her tablet.
Listen, and the reason, because I had to get the tablet, because understand, this was sent to the board. Shout out to the whole board. This was sent to the board, Monday? I think. I can't remember.
In the recent past?
In the recent past. And so, up until today, the board, Stephanie Troutman-Robbins, Karma Chavez, Erica Williams, Christina Gupta, Jessica Pabon, Latoya Lee, Dominique, Valerie Taylor.
Dominique C. Hill, thank you.
Oh, Dominique C. Hill. I ain't say her. Dominique C. Hill, Valerie Taylor, and Lisa Covington. Comments, feedback. And so it's very, very fresh. It's very, very fresh. And But what I will say is I started working on it as soon as I saw that ballot didn't have nobody else's name on it. I was like, oh, I got to go. I got to get
Well, I think it's important to celebrate because people don't always get their flowers until dire circumstances or they're no longer with us. But we had such incredible outreach to the office where folks were saying, thank you for my nomination, but I would like to support Heidi.
Oh, my goodness. And you know what? Okay, now might be the one time I actually believe it since you saying it on Feminist Frequencies. Because they've been telling me that, and I've been like, know about all that.
Yeah.
Shout out to the support, whoever you are.
Unethical to be like, look at these emails, but just believe me in my heart and soul.
Yeah, because whoever you were, I mean, I appreciate that. And
I move with integrity.
Yeah, no, they would never tell me who, and I didn't even ask. Actually, I was just like, oh, but as soon as I saw that I was running unopposed, that was like one of the first things I did was think about Detroit and Puerto Rico, because I knew from being on the board that the content leadership of the conference was in the purview of the president. And I wanted to think, what, and that's another thing I'm excited about with the strategic plan and the conference is that, so you all know that there has typically been an opening keynote. Well, for what I believe is the first time, there will be a presidential address. The presidents have gotten up to welcome membership Thursday night and introduce a keynote. And, I thought about people would think it's ego, right? And I have an ego. Who don't? In the academy, who spends all that time going to school with no ego? But for me, as much as it was about like getting up there on the stage, behind the podium, behind the mic, it was about taking seriously what I believe is the responsibility of the president to lead the membership through the conference in the year. And I think that's particularly important given the ways that attacks on our field are so pronounced. And I wanted to offer myself in that way, for better or worse. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. But in addition to that, you all know we have 2 plenaries, and then there are presidential sessions, anywhere from 4 to 8. That's really up to the president and other people who are involved in that. I am so excited that almost every member of the board will be on one of those main stages to facilitate a plenary or a presidential session. That means a lot to me because the board should be seen, the board should be heard, and the board should be uplifted. And I'm not even gonna lie, I had already had these ideas for what the presidential sessions and plenaries will be. And then when I started to look carefully at the board CVs, even the ones I knew well, it was like,
yeah,
they fit.
And those CVs are longer than a CVS receipt, believe you me. But it's not just about the accolades and like the things that were accomplished in a more professionalized sense. It was the consistent activism and organizing, the orientations of the work, and how we were going to be in community with each other. Now, I do want to kind of take control of the car and like reverse a little bit, or maybe
back to the actual CFP.
Like, perchance, Madam President, let's talk about what the theme is.
Let's do it. So the theme, thank you for asking. The journey, not only the arrival, critical connections, not only critical mass, rethinking feminist movements. It is intentionally long because that length is meant to invite us to sit with the kinds of complexities that I think are particularly important right now in this moment. And one of the people that taught me that is Grace Lee Boggs. And given the fact that Grace Lee Boggs called Detroit home for over 60 years, I thought there's no way that I could be president of NWSA and lead us through a conference that didn't honor that as much as possible, starting with the theme itself. So the theme itself comes from 2 of my favorite Grace Lee Boggs quotes. And I'm going to read them. So in the next American Revolution, Sustainable Activism for the 21st Century, she wrote essentially what the theme says, right? Activism can be the journey rather than the arrival, and that movements are born of critical connections rather than critical mass. That hit heavy to me, especially because of the rather than. I didn't even have, I would say, the courage to rather than. I was like, oh, I'm gonna leave that to the ancestor. So that's why I use not only, but I think it's important for us to know that what she actually wrote was rather than. Think about that. The journey rather than the arrival. So like how we get to a world that's free of xenophobia rather than the xenophobia itself. The world in which xenophobia no longer exists. Woo! And then the critical connections rather than critical mass.
And we're back because the battery died. But we're back, fully charged and ready to jump back in. Now, Madam P, you were talking to me so beautifully about Grace Lee Boggs,
right?
The inspiration for the conference theme. And I feel like we're about to dive deep with the dolphins around these themes and sub-themes and different points of inspiration and grounding.
Yeah, I mean, I make a point in the plan when I identify the two quotes that inspired the theme. I make a point, even though we may be certain about our many intended destinations, I'm inviting us to nurture curiosity about our journeys and connections with one another as much as, that is the lesson from Grace Lee Boggs that most often resonates with me. And so I'm inviting us to uplift that, to honor that. And at the same time, Detroit is home to many elders and ancestors and contemporary comrades, right? I mean, Ruth Ellis, Helen Zia, Dorothy Hayner, abolitionist. The list goes on and on and on. Please, if you can, take a moment to look at those sections of the CFP. Google folks, look them up on social media. I mean, I was overwhelmed diving deep into the resistance happening in Detroit for the purpose of better understanding that city in this role, right? Like, I know what I know about Detroit, but I'm like, okay, no, I can't come into leading us through a conference in Detroit with that knowledge. I needed to go deep. I mean, the Sasha Center, Detroit Will Breathe, LGBT Detroit. Detroit is doing everything. And so I'm asking, a lot of us come to the conference to get nourished. I always have, and I have. I'm asking us to do that and to also name, uplift, be in community with, and nourish our comrades there who are doing the work year round. And this includes our colleagues at Wayne State and nearby Michigan State. Shout out to Lydia Kilo Bennett. So I'm really looking forward to uplifting Boggs alongside our ancestors, elders, and contemporaries because because that is congruent with something else that I name in the strategic plan, which is my commitment to always uplifting the multivocality and multidirectionality of our field, which I guess all those years of teaching Introduction to Feminist and Gender Studies and Feminist Theory paid off. My colleague Rushan Kumar said that to me. He said, man, because I've literally taught those two courses almost every single year since I got to Colorado College in 2010. So it's because of that, in large part, that I'm aware of the multivocality and multidirectionality of our field. And that's why when we look at the plenaries and presidential sessions, we see that we'll have a plenary addressing the state of the field in conjunction with the 45th anniversary of the NWSA conference. First conference was in 1979. We're going to do another plenary on the focused on the occupation of Palestine. And then we have 6 presidential sessions. So, of course, we will have one that is examining the U.S. presidential election, regardless of the winner, right? Regardless. So we're going to think critically about that. And then we have so many. Real quick. Well, I'll come back to that. So how we do this?
We'll put it in the parking lot.
We edit that out.
Come back.
Well, because what I want to say is Vice President Stephanie Troutman Robbins will be facilitating the plenary on NWSA and the state of the field. Erica Williams is facilitating the plenary on the occupation of Palestine. And LaToya Lee is facilitating the presidential session on the election. So her work on activism and grassroots organizing, I thought was really, really lent itself to that space. And that session is also going to do that work with imperialism, war, and occupation in mind, right? So we're not going to simply be either celebrating or freaking out, given, depending on who wins. We're going to be thinking about imperialism and war and occupation as it relates to that election, no matter the winner. So I'm excited about that, right? So then we have these other presidential sessions that are going to celebrate these other anniversaries that I'm so excited about, which, because of the ways that they dovetail with my commitment that we share to the multivocality of the field. So we have the 45th anniversary of Audrey's "The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House." And since it dovetails with the 40th anniversary of her first trip to Berlin, I'm going to facilitate that one. And I'm fingers crossed, prayers up, toes crossed, all that I can get some of my, all that some of my comrades from Berlin can join us for that. And it also would be her 90th birthday this year. So we have a birthday party for Audre Lorde. And it's also the 45th anniversary of the founding of Third Women Press. So Jessica Pabon is going to facilitate a celebration of that. And then we have some 50th anniversaries. I'm an anniversary kind of girl. I just love a good anniversary. We have the 50th anniversary of Lorelei Decorah Means founding Women of All Red Nations. Christina Gupta is going to facilitate a presidential session that uplifts that. We have the founding of Salsa Soul Sisters that Dominique is going to help us celebrate. And what I'm so excited about, so Salsa Soul Sisters, it's like one of the oldest Black and women of color lesbian womanist organizations in this country. But what a lot of people don't know is that the Salsa Soul Sisters, which has been renamed, was reconfigured from NWSA's Black Lesbian Caucus.
Shout out to that history.
So, yeah, like that blew me. When I was just digging in the crates, trying to just see what's been going on.
Going through the archives.
Just going through the archives, digging in the crates. I was like, yo, what? Dolores Jackson collaborated with NWSA members who were Black Lesbian Caucus co-chairs to create this.
And I think that speaks to the importance of those 3 R's, the repair, the restore.
Yes.
What's the third? Oh, girl, I'm lost. Restore.
Reconnect, repair, restore.
There we go. See, the first
you supposed to say it's too late at night. See, we should do some more.
I was living in the last 2, but I think it speaks to
Me too.
To the intention behind finding ways to make sure that the membership is elevated. It's not just we convene together in person or virtually in different ways to promote our work, to seek feedback, to add that line on your CV. All important things. I don't mean to diminish that, but it also invites us to look at how far we've come, to your note with Vivian Ng's first presidential letter, and how she introduced what this presidency would look like, where we're leading through hard times.
Correct.
That's always the case.
Always the case.
We're in a particular field, but look at those beautiful threads that we have no reason to forget, anniversary or not, right?
Yes. Oh, and then there's one more.
Talk to me.
The Forest Strike. Chicana led. 50th anniversary of the end of that. Karma Chavez. But that's why I use the word restore. Because I don't want it to ever... I don't want anyone to think that I'm all about this sort of like progress and innovation in a particular way. Where in order for me to do this presidency the way I want to do it, I have to do everything brand new. And so it's like some of this is about restoration. And that recovery. I could have put recovery in there too.
Restoration, recovery of memory. You know, and I think most folks probably aren't aware of or have not visited our archives that live at the University of Maryland. We are chartered in the state of Maryland. And so thinking about what memory looks like, it's not just celebrations. It's not just the most famous folks. It's the work. And the work has always been done in the collective.
Yep.
You know, starting from revisiting everyone's introduction, like what's our story of arrival as governing board members? That's not including me, but thinking about that,
I think
right?
it does, though, but I get why you're...
I'm there and I'm taking the notes. I'm making the reports. But thinking about all those different threads and how we're connected through our love of a particular scholar, love of work. And I think all those anniversaries, which I know you'll talk about, they seed also into how there is breadth and depth within those sub-themes.
Absolutely.
What are they, by the way?
The sub-themes? I don't know. We don't have any. No, I'm kidding. I'm excited about the sub-themes. Thank you for asking, because they are thematically congruent with the plenaries and the presidential sessions, as well as the overall theme. So state of the field, imperialism, war, and occupation, transnational feminisms, decolonial theory and praxis, and work, labor, and class. And like I said, they're thematically congruent with the plenaries and presidential sessions, which do all of the things that we said. They emphasize the multivocality and multidirectionality of our field. They impress upon us the importance of our history, knowing it, naming it, uplifting it, celebrating it,
iterating through it.
Even as we do so under siege. Some of us, you know, to varying degrees, right? Because I always try to make it clear, like, I'm a tenured faculty member. I'm a Black woman for show. I go through racist sexism at my job every time I show up. And I'm also comfortable in ways that hardly anybody in my family has ever been. So that's what I mean by the multivocality and the multidirectionality. That's what I mean about the complexity. That's what I'm inviting us to do, is to get real about that with each other, so that when we develop and build these relationships, we're doing so from a place of transparency, thoughtfulness. You know, these are the kinds of celebrating these moments, I think, give us opportunities to do that, right? So, yeah.
I think it's like that's the kindle to the fire that we couldn't light here, literally, but it's the impetus for why we gather, real, right? Coming to a conference in this particular way is not just about presenting work. It's the connections, it's the learning, it's the excitement. Like, I'm such a nerd. I was just telling Heidi earlier, I'm like, I'm watching the qualitative workshops out at
Shout out to Ohio State.
Ohio State, you know, because I just find it so nourishing to be like, how are we telling stories?
Really?
But that's a whole other conversation for another day. But
that's what that is.
Thinking about the conference is an act of love. And I think, you know, accountability and transparency, they go hand in hand. But I think feedback is a love language. I think that all the folks who, again, in my short time of being in this specific role as interim director, who've reached out as members or past, present, future interested GC members, have constantly provided their own stories, their own experiences. How can we make this better? This is what I wish I saw. And we've had long-standing requests for more thoughtful, meaningful ways that we show up around accessibility, going above accommodations, like reasonable accommodations, thinking about gender, how we celebrate it, and not only in relation to oppression. And that goes with like every sociopolitical location.
Yep.
But I think the sub-themes also inform how we're moving towards the conference, right? Not all speed is movement. So planning is going through a very particular process of intention. And I'm excited in the administrative kind of side of it to revamp and breathe life back into the ways we tap our constituency group leaders and members as a whole. You don't have to be a part of a constituency group like leadership level, but do you want to be a part of the local committee? Help us think about who we partner with because you live there or you have knowledge of Detroit and Michigan as a whole. We're making sure that our partnerships are ethical. We are proudly standing with our BDS policy. So we are not signing contracts, not giving a coin.
Not a damn one.
Not one. But again, thinking about what it means to see ourselves beyond categories of identity, right? So political alignments, but also time for fun, time for dancing, time for giving one another flowers, asking for help, and so many different iterations of what those care communities will look like. So I think what's really exciting from my standpoint about the CFP, and again, the strategic plan, is it invites more. And I refer to the time that has no end date, I feel, is that we're in chrysalis season. Like we are taking the feedback from the previous conference and all else to think about how we can emerge better, how we can come into a vision that feels realistic, that feels grounded, because not all speed is movement, to echo
it is not
the theme.
It is not. And, you know, the work of repairing is difficult. It's long, arduous. But it's one of the most important aspects of the work to me. The work of being held accountable and holding someone accountable is just really, really important to me. But it's harder when there's no relationship. Like I'm quick to cuss. I can cut you off easy if I don't know you. Not as NWSA president because I know what my responsibility is, but you know what I mean? Just like in my regular life. Like if I don't know you and you do harm to me, I'm like, bye. And I'm not even saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's easier.
Of course.
So what I'm asking us to do is to dive into one another so that work becomes a priority. Because it's easy to deprioritize, I think, when it's like, oh, I just know her, or I just know them, I just know him. It's like critical connections, not only critical mass. That's where I want to live forever. And I'm just inviting us to sit there in a pronounced way leading up to and during Detroit. And hopefully all of the work we do to get us there will encourage people to continue to try to live that out after Detroit. Because how can we do reconnect, repair, restore on a superficial level? That's just...
Yeah. If we only get together and engage these principles, or rather these tenets, just the one time during
for a few days amongst at least 1,500 people. That's a lot of people to be trying to reconnect and repair and restore. I mean,
I mean, we had, I think it was 18.
It was definitely, I think, 1,800.
889.
Correct.
From when we did the evaluations and cross-reference.
Come on now,
again,
that's
remember,
a lot of
math
people.
is not my ministry. Doesn't mean that I can't do it. Just that it takes me a little bit longer. This is where Courtney, as our operations manager, her Virgo brain just gives way.
Shout out to every Virgo.
To accuracy.
Shout out to only child Virgos too. Me too.
Back to this. So
I'm just saying it's a part of restore because
we're restoring.
Right.
But
you need a good Virgo to organize the process of restoration.
And that's why you're the president. That's why you were elected, among many other beautiful things. But I think the conversation continuously informs not just quote unquote work, but how we're sitting in it, thinking, confronting. Really? And it's hard, right? I think your specific, particular, intentional naming of transparency, of repairing, is also our relationship as a whole to the membership.
Absolutely.
It's not just with these collaborations. It's not just with the places we go to and how we choose different types of connections. It's really how we show up for each other. Hierarchy does exist. I mean, we can't get around that. And so who are the visionaries? Who are the executors? That sounds, I don't like that word. Who are the facilitators
right.
of the logistics?
As soon as you said, I was like,
I said, who are the folks who take those ideas and bring them to life, and they're informed by a collective. Collective is the membership, the board, the president, right? It all comes into one. What I'm excited about with Detroit is to gather. It'll be our first conference together. Technically my first conference.
No, really, technically,
as
both of
director.
ours.
Yeah, I rolled in August, ready to do.
You know what I mean?
What I had to do with this.
I hate to say first because I don't want to diminish what you did in Baltimore, but at the same time, in this particular role, like from start to finish.
No, exactly. And I think I'm excited about putting into fruition all the things that folks have asked beyond last conference in Baltimore, which is how are we making the conference accessible? How are we highlighting whose work gets celebrated? What types of new and also former ways of connecting can we make more dynamic? And to your point, like, how are we celebrating? And not just celebrating, like, thanks for coming, but supporting and the investments that you made as a grad student, myself and so many others, for our current cohort of graduate students, our contingent faculty, and every other caucus, like Women of Color Caucus, who for decades have held us down with WillClub, such an important, I'm an alum, you're an alum. Shout out to all alum of WillClub.
Stephanie Chapman Robbins is an alum.
Yes.
I mean.
And again, different partnerships. So I think repair, reconnect, restore, that's not the order, but taking those three tenets.
It is the order.
Isn't it reconnect, repair? You wrote it. I'm going to defer to you.
Reconnect, repair, restore.
Good job.
I put restore. Okay. To see, the order is the way it is because
I can see it in my mind's eye on the computer screen. I'm like, I have read it, but this is not important for you.
No, please. I'm teasing.
But just thinking about
Yes.
those tenets is not just something that lived in your noggin. It was informed by being in the audience.
Absolutely.
Connecting your computer to the HDMI to present your work at a session. And all those hallway conversations, the dinners, meeting up at all those other elements. And so,
really,
you know how people pick a word for their year? Like, this is the word that I'm going to like embody. I'm going to carry it.
Right.
What word do you think just comes to mind when you think about 2024 Detroit?
Connection. Really. I mean, if I had to pick one, because the way I understand it, you know, there would be all kinds of adjectives that are floating around it.
You couldn't just pick one. You had to do a word bubble. You said,
you better believe
connection.
It. You think you can't tell me what to do? You don't tell me, I tell you. This is literally my phrase in my household. Ask my husband and kids. You don't tell me, I tell you. But I did abide because the word is connection. It's just that the way I understand connection in that capacity, you know, would be attentive to purposeful, meaningful, right?
Restorative, reparative.
Family-wise too, friends-wise too. I just want to be in community. Like, I've been on the phone a lot lately because I don't live close to a lot of people that I love and that love me back. So I just been on the phone. Then my son came. I was like, with my son. My family. I just want to be in that space of like, and all energy is not good energy, whatever that means. I don't care. Like, I want to be in spaces where that comes into the room and I'm like, woo. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not particularly romantic and I'm certainly not naive. You know what I mean? There are people that I'm going to see at NWSA who I'm positive do not like me. Maybe vice versa. I still want to be in a room with that person too. I want to give something else to that person. I want to give, like, I'm happy to see you, even if we don't really get along. That's what I'm on.
I think what you're describing, like in my mind, the way I compute it into my little brain diary is putting the relationship before the task, right? We had great meeting a couple of weeks ago. Actually, no, it wasn't, like last week.
I was going to say, was it yesterday?
Well, we were talking about reparative relationships with some of our caucus groups.
Yes.
Especially thinking about how the association addresses issues of power and harm, how we inadvertently or purposefully or any other word in between those two binaries feed into or are complicit in. I think that's what we're looking for. Complicit in harm. Namely thinking about our past conference, the most recent in Baltimore. Like, how are we speaking to not just injustice in Palestine, but Congo, Sudan, Myanmar, Tigray, so many other places where Kashmir, dispossession of peoples and disposability of peoples, right? So thinking about our relationship to one another has to come before the task, so that when the task comes into fruition, the connections is what grounds us.
That is Grace Lee Boggs.
Correct.
That's for real.
Correct.
Man, I mean that, and I'm telling you, yes.
Yeah, we have to be in community meaningfully with ethics and integrity at the core.
Or I don't know what we're doing.
Right? And restore our memory and how we are celebrating both the good, the bad, and the in-between around all the anniversaries, what they mean to us.
And maybe I am romantic then.
So that when we get to the task, it means something.
I agree.
So that when we're convening in Detroit, whether at a reception or a hot fire session, an amazing keynote, presidential session, insert other event here, that we move away from that space galvanized. So for me, my word is nourished. I want to be able to leave the conference and feel fed.
You will.
I will literally.
That's a promise.
I will literally.
I mean it.
And also emotionally and ethically and like intellectually, spiritually.
I'm so glad you shared. I don't even have to. I love that you just know. Please put yours, because I'm so overwhelmed. No, listen. Yes, nourish. I love that you said that, because I think that's also like a space. If I had another word, which I'm like, Heidi, don't do this, but I just have to say, what your word, what I appreciate about your word is that it's an example of another thing that I'm interested in more than ever right now, which is reciprocity. So that goes, it goes more than even both ways, right? Like there aren't even just two ways. Like nourishing, like being nourished. You know what I mean? That's why I like that word.
I keep thinking about
Multiverse, Spider-Verse.
I'm thinking about Spider-Verse. Shout out to you, Miles Morales, right? It's just,
but yeah, that word is so,
And I think too, what makes me excited is even on the days that I'm overwhelmed and balding, because it's a lot of spreadsheets. It's a lot of spreadsheets. It's a lot of contracts.
We're gonna make a TikTok about these spreadsheets.
But even when I'm overwhelmed, I'm grounded in a very particular, very nerdy love to be entrenched in feminist work, to be able to speak the same language and be understood. I was telling my spouse, it's like taking your bra off at the end of the day for the folks who wear bras.
Not me. Yeah. Not too much.
I love that you're liberated.
Yeah, please.
I'm not there yet.
When I'm lift. What am I do?
Or, like just
that's like
shedding.
The relief, yeah.
Yeah, like the relief. It's like I don't have to over-explain myself. And so I think what I hold on to in my first conferences and even now, I go to NWSA and I feel understood. I feel curious. And I leave it always feeling fed. Because if I'm not able to get it in my community, like you're saying, like being disconnected from people we love, but disconnected from resources. I moved to Texas from Atlanta, which is a very different place. I'm on the border.
Very different from Atlanta.
But thinking about like what community looks like for me when I can literally see the border and like and so many other things. But the point I'm trying to make is that being nourished isn't just an intellectual activity. It's not transactional. It's about being able to make connections with people. And I'm excited because the change is an invitation, right? Like there's more to come. And this chrysalis season, which by the way, I cite my sources from Brittany Brockway
all the time
and Mickey Ferraro, who are the founders of Homegirl Box. or now formerly, no, now it's called Homegirl HQ. I'm giving you a little bit of history.
Yes.
But when I first saw them talk about being Chrysalis season, I was like, that's where we are as NWSA.
I loved it.
And so we might emerge a really beautiful butterfly. We might emerge another insect, perhaps a moth. I don't know any others, but behind those two that do cocooning.
Listen, and we are not. And the thing of it is, and the thing, and in that, what I appreciate about that is your attention to the journey,
mm-hmm.
not
the
just
arrival.
the arrival. You know what I mean? That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, perfection. My colleague Nadia Gassus always says, you know, there are no finish lines here. Not in this work. What is it then? And how come, you know, other people didn't reach it, right? So, you know, the kinds of questions I'm asking of us in the CFP and that I'll ask again in the presidential address, you know, I'm just asking to give a little bit of our time to it, right? Like, that's all. You know what I mean? That's all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to galvanize us around some questions, some ideas. And what I know to be true is that we're all in one way or several others doing that already.
Mm-hmm.
We just may not have had the occasion to frame it that way. So many of us, you know, just comments. I talk a lot. Those who know me are like, but what about questions? Are we not those people anymore? Mm-hmm. Curiosity should never die in people like us.
Yeah.
So I'm lit.
The lobby's lit.
Oh, the lobby lit. Hashtag lobby lit. Y'all better hashtag it. If y'all don't hashtag it, I'm quit.
CFP is lit.
I ain't coming back no more. No.
But I think beyond these different like moving parts that we're talking about, like the two words connect and nourish, just also highlight that the work as it's reflected or presented rather in the CFP, in the strategic plan, is not just about putting out documents. It's about making sure we have a roadmap, a destination. We don't know where it is because it's the journey, not the arrival.
And even if we do, come on.
See how I did that?
Come on, let's see how I did that.
I know. But to kind of wrap it up, because this feminist frequency has been 91 hours. We done lost the battery.
And we done lost this tablet.
A lot of things have been happening. Jeez. But we're here, grounded in the conversation, right? And I just want to say thank you, not because it's one of those like, thank you for coming to my show, because it really is NWSA space for conversation.
Hour.
I think, again, like we're in such a beautiful time of transition and Feminist Frequencies, this presidential fireside.
That's Christian named that.
I did today. But this presidential fireside chat with the symbolic fire.
The living fires.
The living fire. Words of fire.
Oh, not words of, yes.
You. One, Dr.
Big
Beverly Guy
Bev.
Hashtag hyphen Guy Sheftel. But this is one of our examples of trying to make sure that the communications we share with the membership and just any person who's interested in what NWSA offers, you know, what does it mean to be part of the association? What kind of support and connections can we build year long? This is one of our creative ways with our production team of 1.5. And
that's all right.
And we're grateful, I think, too, to try to bridge what it means to write, teach, think a feminist life, and then how we live it. And that congruency, whether we're talking about those sub-themes, the celebrations, how we're honoring Grace Lee Boggs' lesson and her legacy, all of it is interwoven into how we're showing up, whether it's our relationship, the collective, but most importantly, the membership. And so this was 19 hours, and I hope that you enjoyed watching and probably critiquing, also affirming, and other sentiments.
Right now, please. No, if we don't know, what did Robin Kelly say? If all we know is what to knock down, what we gonna build when we get over there, or whatever Robin Kelly said.
Oh, so what? I see what you're doing, invoking a abolitionist perspective.
If all we know, it's in Freedom Dreams.
It sure is. What page? I don't know.
You better.
I'm out of my memorization stage.
I just know I love that quote.
Shout out to you,
because you're
Rapper
going to
DG
knock
Kelly.
me all over the place and build. We're going to build too.
And what a perfect way to close out, friend. Because we're building, we're reconnecting, we're repairing, and we're restoring.
That's right. Thank you so much. Please keep tuning in and share. And you can listen to this when you're in the shower, when you're in the car. You don't have to just sit down. Teach it. Sign it on your syllabus. And then when you put it on your syllabus, invite me to speak to your class. I mean, just imagine if you tell your class, we're going to have the president of NWSA here today, or the interim director. They'll be so excited that they will appreciate that more than you do. When you get older, you'll be like, your students will be like, oh my God. So bring us in so we can get back out here and reconnect, repair, restore.
And the board.
And the board. Oh, don't play with my board.
Leaders and other folks who are doing the work.
Work.
Because we're hoping to just leverage
That's
what
right.
already exists. Because we're not reinventing the wheel. We're inviting more folks to build different modes of transportation. Because we're getting somewhere.
And if you, this is what I was going to ask.
This is the longest close
ever. And let me tell you, if you or anyone you know has served on the NWSA board, would you please send an email and tell us what you served as, what years, because we can't find that information. We need it. We're trying to get an archive developed, and I don't know who was the treasurer in 2008, and I should be able to know that now.
But we'll figure it out.
Because y'all gonna help us send it in.
We'll figure it out. You can email president@nwsa.org.
Interim director at NWSA.
Or president.
Don't email me. The administrative anchor of the association. That's what she always says.
And
watch your mouth.
She uses her
watch your
own
mouth.
words against me.
Thank y'all for coming. Y'all the greatest.
Thank you so much. And we're excited to see you in November. Now you can say goodbye.
Bye.